It's widely acknowledged one of the biggest challenges facing e-mountain biking at the minute is simply the cost of them. Now, Chris recently did a conversion to 8-speed on his bike, and we've looked at downgrades too. But the question is, do you actually need big range, expensive gearing, or can you have something a little less expensive to get up hills such as this? Now, on the bikes that we're using today, we've got on the Lvly here, SRAM axis shifting, 1052 with electronic derailleur. And on this bike here, we've got a slightly cheaper setup. We've got a GX non-electronic setup with a smaller cassette on the back. But we've also got a smaller chainring too. We're running 32 up front on this one, and this bike is here as stock, and that is 34. So we're not just looking at a bike's ability to conquer climbs. What we have to think about as well is the replacement costs of chains and cassettes on our e-mountain bikes, because replacing an axis cassette and derailleur, looking at about £700 for that derailleur and about £400 for that cassette, whereas on the Guustavv over there, it's a far less expensive setup. But first of all, let's go and have a look at whether these bikes can get up the climb equally as efficiently. Okay folks, in between the May midges, just for reference, I'm 93 kilos. Both bikes have got the same motor on them. This is the Lvly, this is the Guustavv over here. And crucially, the mission control settings for each of the outputs in each mode. I'm going to be doing these rides in turbo, trail and eco mode. And I think Brandon is maybe tempting me to ride up that hill with the motor off, but we'll see how it pans out. So yeah, I think it's a fair representation of maybe the limits of what most of us would do on an e-mountain bike in terms of gradient. Yes, obviously in super technical terrain, things are a little bit different, but one hill, one day, wet conditions. Let's see the comparison between these two gear setups. First of all, I'm going to be in turbo and in the easiest gear on the Lvly. So here we go. Yeah, so it's nice and light on the legs. You can move your body around. It's actually pretty comfortable. And just breezing up this hill, super easy. Okay, next up I'm taking the Guustavv. Now remember, the Guustavv is a lot more travel. There's 180 mil travel on this bike, and the geometry is more suited towards gravity. So if anything, it should be more difficult to get up this hill anyway on this bike, but does the gearing hold it back? So maybe switch it on first. Or maybe I should have gone in eco. Right, turbo mode, up the hill on the Guustavv. Do you know what? Oh, that's madness. This actually feels, that's ridiculous. It actually feels quite similar. I did not expect that. Wow, that's weird. I can't believe I've never actually done that comparison before. Okay, next up, I'm in trail mode. Obviously, you might want to conserve some of your battery on your e-mountain bike. So it's still super light on the legs. Yeah, getting up here, absolutely no problem at all. Okay, back on the Guustavv. I think it's a 75-degree seat tube angle on this. Right, into trail. Oh, it's a little heavier on the legs actually. It does feel a little heavier on the legs for definite, but still doable on this bike. Now believe me, it is a pretty steep bank this. So you would never ever normally attempt this in eco mode, but just for reference, I mean, it is light. You have to say it is super light in eco mode. Yeah, that's pretty impressive. That is pretty impressive. Ooh. Okay, right. Just to point out that got the same shorty tyre on the back of these bikes as the guys up front. So soft compound tyres, now into eco mode. Whew. Whew, difference in the weight of the two bikes. Looking around 23 kilos on the Kenevo and about 22 on the Lvly. So there's a bit of weight at play here as well. So yeah, there is a difference. There certainly is a difference between the high and the low, but nevertheless, you can still get up these banks. This is a steep bank. It's just a little bit more effort in eco. So folks, yes, you know, when you get down into eco mode, it is a little bit easier on this setup compared to what I had on the Kenevo, but you know, you would not normally ride up there in eco mode. But I'm just thinking, when I consider the places we've ridden on e-bikes around the world, whether it be the Alps, South America, or some dirty hill in North Wales, or even Bristol. Now, the slab which we conquered was actually done on the smaller setup which we had on the Kenevo there, pretty much exactly the same setup we used there to get up the slab, and I'm telling you what, that was scarily steep. But folks, the bottom line, I think, is that there's more at play other than the gearing or the motor. There's actually your rider skill, because that is ultimately what will enable you to get up those super steep climbs, as we found out riding with Chris Ackrig recently. But a hugely important topic to discuss, so please get involved in the comments, any questions. I think this is definitely a discussion which will keep on rumbling.